It's a good day.
All right, so obviously you guys joining once again. Always appreciate it. This is big for, Joe and I doing this podcast. We started this in June. We finally have got it onto Zoom. People can see our faces. So I guess without that, let's
So now we can know if everything's working out.
Yeah. Pretty
Better or worse.
Yeah. So where do you guys, we got a lot to talk about. We were going to do this Friday, and some things came up on my end and then everybody else's end, and then it was Thanksgiving this weekend here in Canada, so it was
right.
tricky.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jake.
People across the border.
And then today worked out perfectly, so it was hard for us. We wanted to do a podcast Friday, right? Like, Neil, you and I were talking about doing it Friday, but
yep.
We just kept making so many moves. Like Fitzgerald, it seemed like just wouldn't go to bed. So
yeah,
I was like, all right.
Do you think the GM cares that we podcasted on Friday?
Not really. But it was just, we just kind of waited till it kind of calmed down a bit before we got started. So I guess we're I
mean, we can't be. We're not fully safe because it's only 7:00, and since every move has been at like 9 p.m. or later, we don't know. We don't know.
There could be something that happens during this podcast.
I mean, we're already hearing that possibly Fitzgerald is still working on something else. What he did with Andreas Janssen. I don't really know what exactly that is. But if I were to guess, I'm going to throw a really, really crazy one out there. I think the Devils are trying to get Max Pacioretty from Vegas. Pacioretty's name has been thrown around, and other than Nate Schmidt, because obviously we just found out just as we jumped on here that Alex Pietrangelo is officially signing with Vegas, which I don't think anybody here would say that they're surprised by that. I think that was coming. I think we knew that. Nate Schmidt is going to be somebody that they're going to have to move. And Pacioretty's name was thrown out as well. He has a pretty, not a hefty contract, but a pretty sizable one, something like $5.5 million, I think.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Contracts, but like the length was never good with the Pacioretty contract. But when it comes to AAV with Max Pacioretty, his cap hit has never been like a cap hit. You're like, okay, like I have to stay away from Max Pacioretty because that cap hit is bad.
Yeah. They're definitely going to have to move someone because it looks like Vegas gave let me check my phone, but I think they gave Pietrangelo
7 years, 8.8.
Yeah, per year.
Yeah. Where is that money coming from?
Well, they're going to, someone's on the move. A couple people probably.
At least 3 or 4, maybe even 5 guys are on the move. I mean, first of all, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to have to get moved somehow.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Vegas has waited too long because most of the goalies that were on the free agent market have already been picked up. A lot of I don't know where he's going.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either. Nate Schmidt he was supposedly traded to the Panthers yesterday, and then he was not traded to the Panthers. So
that was weird.
So I don't know what's going to happen there. They're definitely going to have to do something here in the next, a few days to get the money for Pietrangelo. So it'll be interesting to see if the Devils they decide to get into talks with Vegas. I could see maybe a couple players that interest them.
But I know they were also thinking about moving Jonathan Marchessault as well.
Marchessault would be pretty great. I mean,
I got another one.
You can score.
What about Riley Smith?
I love Riley Smith.
Alex Tuck.
I'm not that. I like Riley Smith better than Tuck.
It would be great to get either one of those, but I just don't think Vegas is going to be willing to give up them unless they.
Yeah, I agree there too.
Unless they're in a situation where they have no choice.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's where they're right at the cap, but with $1.8 million left, and they're going to have to move somebody. They may have to move like at least 3 guys. Like Toronto's already made a bunch of moves. These guys are going to make even more moves with the way the cap for them is even strict.
Right, and Toronto's at something like what 700,000 on the cap, and they're still having to make moves. So I think that Fitzgerald, the reason why he said today, and he said several times why he's been super patient, is because he understands that a lot of teams are going to have to make drastic moves over the next couple of weeks. and he's just waiting everything out and see what's going on. And then you also heard that he's not averse to giving up prospects either. So that kind of puts you in a situation where you say, well, that puts us in rumors with basically any big name player that's out there in the trade market. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that means that all of a sudden the Devils are back in the Patrick Laine discussion. I mean, Laine's name's kind of died down over the last couple of, pretty much the last week, I would say, because I haven't heard anything about anybody calling. I think teams have given up on Patrick Laine. I even think the Flyers have given up. I don't think they're interested anymore, or they probably just feel like the price is just too much considering the situation. But I think it just depends on what exactly Fitzgerald wants. I don't know if Andreas Johnsson is going to be that top 6 winger that we were talking about, or that the Devils said that they were trying to get. I don't have a problem with him being a top 6 winger because I think he would do well, regardless whether he played on the first or second line. But I think they still need to get a top 4 defenseman, and I still think they need to get another top 6 winger. But it all just depends on what's available and what Fitzgerald can do.
Yeah, like for goodness sakes, like last year, you look at Hughes and a couple of other young guys, are super fleet of foot. Johnsson brings that speed and dynamic, like a little bit scoring touch to like a second and first line, and he was kind of shackled in Toronto with that kind of play, and I believe he could complement a Jack Hughes' speed. And I was talking to someone about foot speed being the problem last year, like Wayne Simmons, Rooney, or Hayden with Hughes really brought down the speed level of that third line, which to me was just laughable. And I'm glad that Hines is not our coach anymore, and I'm much happier now that Lindy Ruff is our guy. And Mark Recchi spoke last night on another podcast we all know, good friends of the show actually, and I said it was a fresh breath of salt air to have Mark Recchi talking about these important things about these individual players.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought up Lindy Ruff, because I think, we've seen Andreas Johnsson, like, he did well. He kind of struggled, it seemed, under Sheldon Keefe, kind of a new coach, but it seemed like under a veteran coach, like, Mike Babcock's been around the league a long time. He got the best, it seemed, out of Andreas Johnsson, because like 2 years ago, Andreas Johnsson put up 20 goals. I mean, yeah. mind you, he was also playing with, Marner and Tavares and Austin Matthews, which is also good. Like, I got a bunch of buddies who are Leafs fans, and they have said, like, he's going to be like in a grinder role, and he's speed, but he's inconsistent. But if you put him with the skilled players, he'll succeed, which is good. But I mean, he could come in and do really well on our first and second line. I think is obviously what we want, because we want players playing with Nico and Jack to help them take their games to the next level. I think we have no question that Nico's going to do it. It's just a matter of when. And Jack Hughes, as they say, put on as much muscle as he has. He can step up to the plate here next season and definitely the season after, but they got to get players to play around him. But when all is said and done, we still got question marks going into next offseason. Like, Palmieri's due for a contract extension here. Gusev's due for a contract extension here. Blackwood and Bratt's going to get done. It's just a matter of when it gets done. Those ones kind of get pushed to the back burners, it seems, until you figure out what other moves you've made, till you know what's going on. It'll get done. I assume Blackwood's going to be a bridge deal. I don't know if it'll be a long-term contract just yet. I could see them going the long-term route, because they seem to do that with their young guys. And then that way, it brings the AAV down a bit.
Yep.
But when all is said and done, when this team's like contenders and stuff, and you've got Alexander Holtz playing in the lineup and Dawson Mercer and stuff like that, are we going to be sitting here again saying, Andreas Jansson's on our second line or our first line, at that point, when we're contending, I hope, for me, you have Andreas Janssen playing on your third line, adding even more scoring to your bottom six on your third line. And then you have your guys up at the top that are, filling the net and stuff, like your Nolan Foots and, your Holtzes, your Mercers, and, whoever else steps up to the plate. But I mean, that's where I am. I got thinking about the Palmieri thing again today. And I mean, they have, Alex has mentioned, and he's spot on here. He has time. Like, Fitzgerald has time. Like, he's got till the deadline, basically, of next season to make a decision on Palmieri. But where I'm at is, if he's not signed close to the deadline, trade him. Get something for him like you did with Hall. And, bring more assets back in to help us keep moving this process along. But I also got thinking about it, and I was like, if we do sign Palmieri to a 4 or 5 year extension, it's not the worst thing in the world, because when Holtz is coming in and, he's finally going to be hitting his prime and stuff at 25 or 26, then Palmieri will probably be starting to, fizzle out and move on as he's getting older. But if Holtz comes in at 20 or 21 or even 19, and you have Palmieri and Holtz as your two right wingers in your top six, I mean, the Devils are looking pretty good on the right side there for their top line. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. And I think that's where Lindy Ruff will come in. He did obviously great things for Danny Briere when he went over to Buffalo when he was with Phoenix back in the day. And he took those young Sabres players to a whole new level there. They were pretty unstoppable. And I think it was 06 and 05 and 06. They had back-to-back runs to the conference finals. And then they had a young team in 99. Obviously, Hasek kind of helped carry them there. There's no doubt in his talent, but that just shows you the kind of coach that Lindy Ruff is. Like, he brought the best out of Klingberg, Seguin, and Ben. He can clearly do it with Heischer and Hughes. So, I mean, that's where I stand. I don't know what you guys think on that, but
Yeah, I think from just looking at between Andreas Johnson and Lindy Ruff, they're gonna if we're going off what Ruff did with the Stars, it's probably gonna be a more offensive, fast-paced Devils team going forward. And Andreas Johnson's strength is his offense, or at least what he provides at even strength. So if that's the case, I could see him benefiting from playing in an offensive system like Ruff's. It's not to say he's going to be like a 60, 70 point player anytime soon, but 20 goals and maybe 40, 45, even 50 points is not impossible. So the way the team is structured right now, I could definitely see him playing somewhere in the top six, whether it's with Nico or Jack. I think there's a lot of options you can do because Johnson can play both wings. He's not just a left winger. He plays both sides. So I think that'll help a lot as well.
Before whoever's going next, before you guys go, I just want to tell you that Pietrangelo, Stone, Pacioretty, and Fleury make a combined $32.3 million of Vegas's cap space, and Vegas might have. I mean, they're going for it, right? So they're in like a win now mode, I guess. But they're $6.9 million, so $7 million over the cap now, and they gave Alex Pietrangelo a full no movement clause at a 7-year contract. Yeah, what is he?
Yeah, so Nate Schmidt's definitely gone because
the last 2 years of that
definitely a contract.
It sounds like they brought down the price intentionally on Schmidt.
Yeah,
sounds like
it's definitely a contract. Talking about Pietrangelo, it's a contract that Vegas is going to regret within the next 2 years, especially if Vegas is no longer contending and their main core players that you just mentioned are pretty much going to get close to the wrong side of 30, and that's going to be a problem because a lot of these teams in the National Hockey League who are able to make consistent runs deep into the playoffs, one of the things that they have an advantage of is they have a lot of youth. I don't really see a lot of youth with Vegas. I see a lot of veteran experience. I see a lot of talent, no question. And I think that in normal times, they probably would have gotten past Dallas in the conference finals. But when you're facing a team that has all the momentum and has all what I call juju going, there isn't much anything you could really do. And playoff hockey is more predictable than anything else that we've seen. But, Vegas, they had no expectations their first year, and then they got to the Stanley Cup Finals. Then the year after, they got knocked out after blowing a 3-1 lead in the first round of San Jose. This year, they get to the conference finals. They feel like that they have a team that is capable of winning a Stanley Cup, and I can totally understand why when you look at the talent that they have. But now that they're $6-7 million well over the cap, there is no question that they are going to have to move 2 or 3 guys. And that's one of the reasons why Pacioretty's name has been brought up, because I think out of all of those core guys, Pacioretty's the one that they're the most okay with moving on from the forward group because of his injuries. Also, the fact you have to remember, he was out the majority of this year. And I think he was out the first, 7, 8, 9 games of the postseason this year. He was out for a while. So they're probably wondering, is he stay healthy, down the stretch when we need him? Who knows? I think Pacioretty's still a very talented player. I think he can still give you 30, 35 goals. I think he is capable of doing that. But I think because of his contract and the situation that Vegas is in, he might be one of those guys, along with Nate Schmidt, that's probably going to end up being moved. Another guy that I think might actually be moved, and I think this is more of a surprise than anything else, is Whitecloud. I think that's somebody that actually people are going to call Vegas about. And even though it wouldn't be necessarily salary dump, it would still be a salary dump from the standpoint of, you're at least getting a little bit of money, and a little bit of flexibility. It would obviously hurt their decor, but it might be a move Vegas might have no say in the matter. It might just be something that they have to do, but they will have to make moves. I don't know who they're going to make moves to. There's not a lot of teams out there that have cap space, other than obviously the team that we are talking about. But, it'll be interesting. But I think I think the Golden Knights should have tried to convince him to take a 3 or 4 year deal instead of a 7, 8 year deal, whatever it was. And I just think it's going to be something that's going to really hurt them down the road. And I'm glad that the Devils, at least from what we know, was not even going to take a chance on trying to bring that guy in.
No, if we were, before I go on, it says up here in the meeting that it says 40 minutes. So I'm hoping it doesn't cut us out here after 40 minutes.
It'll cut us out after 40 minutes. So I would
expanded to
yeah. And what
one.
One option that you could do is you can, when this one ends, you could just create another Zoom call, and we could just keep going, and you could just take both parts and put them together.
Okay.
So
yeah, maybe we'll do that.
So
yeah,
when we get close to it, we could just say that's the end of part 1, and then we'll just do part 2, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. But what I want to bring up is right now I'm just checking cap friendly. It's the Senators with over 27 million, the Rangers with over 18.8, Red Wings with 18.7. You have our team with 18.3 million. You have the Preds at over 13.6, and same thing with the Sabres. And you have the Blue Jackets, Kings, Panthers, and Bruins all in the 10 plus million and up club in cap space. So you got a bunch of other teams competing, but there might be some internal cap crunching, if you will. What Elliot Friedman was talking about earlier, last week.
Mm-hmm.
So some teams might have a little bit shorter cap limit.
Yeah, there's not a lot of teams that can come in there and help Vegas. The Devils are obviously one of them, but it depends what Vegas is willing to give up. If it's a bad contract like Fleury's, it would have had to include a pretty insane sweetener for the Devils to take that on. And now that they have Corey Crawford, that's not happening. So I guess next up would be Nate Schmidt, but he's going to be 30 years old soon, and he's got a cap hit of close to $6 million for another 4 years, I think. So not really sure that appeals to the Devils. After that, Pacioretty's probably a little bit in the same boat as Schmidt. He's 31 now, I think, and he's got 4 years left on his deal. I think Riley Smith would appeal to them, but I don't know if Vegas is willing to trade him. I would say the same about Jonathan Marchessault too. If they're willing to trade him, I think the Devils would be interested, but I'm not really sure that they are. So it'd be interesting to see who helps Vegas. What was that?
I said Whitecloud, money-wise and youth-wise, makes a whole lot of sense from Neil earlier.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
like,
100%.
the cap hit and the time and the age is perfect. I just think Pacioretty at his age, kind of like similar to Palmieri's case, it's going to be a little bit more higher risk than reward.
Mhm.
Will come give or take or trade. So
Yeah.
I think Fitzy is going to probably avoid Vegas.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless they give him a very good deal.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see. I don't know. I guess it depends what contract they'd be willing to give up. I think Riley Smith only has like 2 years left on his deal, so that's why maybe I'm gonna go look that up. I'm pretty sure.
It's
I'm actually on there. So
I think with any guy that has a certain, a decent amount of, term left on their deal, I think that Vegas is going to have to settle with the reality of they have absolutely no say in any negotiation that they make with any single team.
2
Yeah,
more seasons for Riley
It's
Smith.
2 more seasons.
2 more seasons. Yeah, so I
And-
could see that being appealing to the Devils because he's only got 2 seasons left, and he's still really good. So
I don't think it'll be the Devils that'll call Vegas. I think it'll be the other way around. I think
Yeah, it's
Vegas will
Vegas
call,
will calling
will call
us.
Fitz, right? I
Yeah.
think they'll call Fitz and they'll ask him what appeals to him, and then
Yeah.
go from there. And I think that the Devils made it clear that they didn't want to be a salary dump team. They didn't want to just
Right.
take people's contracts and go from there. With Johnson, that's a different story. He's a young player that has term, and it's not a bad cap hit at all. It's like what, 4 million, 5 million for the next.
less. It's 3.5,
It's
like
3.5
3.4
That's
million.
nothing. They
Yeah.
called us. Toronto called it a salary dump because they had to dump his salary, even though it wasn't that much. For the Devils, it wasn't a salary dump. So, if the Devils were to take on someone's big contract, let's say, Pacioretty, Vegas is going to have to pay some of that. It's not going to, like, the Devils are going to be like, we're not taking it full heartedly unless you're willing to give us also a first round pick
Yeah.
for like
I
nothing.
think for Pacioretty, the Devils are not gonna take that entire contract they're not gonna take the entire salary on. But like for someone Riley Smith, who only has 2 years left, and I think his cap is like around $5 million or something like that, I think they would take on the full salary. I don't think they have an issue with that. It would also lower the value of acquiring Smith. So Vegas has to think here with the cap trouble they have. Do they have a realistic chance of re-signing Riley Smith down the road? And the answer to that is right now is probably no. So
Probably not.
maybe they're like, all right, well, we're just going to cut our ties here and get something in return for him because we know we got no shot at re-signing this guy. So
Right.
I don't know. I've always liked Riley Smith. I wrote about him a year ago when Vegas was trading, had cap problems back then. The Devils ended up getting Gusev at the time.
Mhm.
I could see Riley Smith being a target for them if he's available. So I
Well,
think he makes a lot of sense for the Devils.
The whole reason that Gusev became available and that the Devils jumped on it was the fact that, like you mentioned, Alex, that Vegas was in cap situation and they knew they probably weren't going to be able to pay Gusev what he was asking for, even just the 2-year deal that the Devils gave him. So again, they're going to be in much more difficult trouble now, and they're going to be in a difficult position for the next couple of years as their main core of guys get older. Let's be honest. Robin Leonard is not that young. Marc-Andre Fleury is not that young.
Nope.
And I know they want to move Fleury. And I know probably Fleury wants out, considering all the factors that have been put out there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. If they try to buy out anybody, it would be a very bad idea because that will only create more problems for them. So I think that they're going to be in a situation where they're going to have to take very little back in any move that they make, regardless of who it is. So if they move Pacioretty, if they move Nate Schmidt, if they move Riley Smith, if they move White Cloud, they're not going to get anything decent back. They're going to get like low first round picks and maybe a low tier prospect. You know what I mean? They're not going to get anything that would say, oh, Vegas still was able to get something out of it. No, it's more of the fact that, it's going to be like that. And getting a guy like Pacioretty wouldn't necessarily help with what Fitzgerald said he wanted to do, which was to make this team about Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes' development above everything else. Pacioretty at this point in his career would be more in the win now scenario. He would rather go somewhere and maybe he gets bought out. Maybe he gets traded somewhere and gets bought out and then can just sign a 1, 2, 3-year deal with a cup contender that has a decent amount of cap space. But, someone like Nate Schmidt, it could be the same thing. It's not like anybody that Vegas would be offering is somebody that would fit the timeline that the Devils at least put for themselves as to where they see fit. The only guy that I mentioned before that makes sense is Whitecloud, because Whitecloud would fit the age group, and considering the money he's making now in the term, it would all fit for what the Devils are trying to do. Plus, I think Whitecloud would be an upgrade on the defense regardless of where he's put.
Yeah.
On this team.
I mean, Whitecloud he looked pretty good in the playoffs, and I don't think he's anything more than like a number 4 or 5 defenseman, but he could be like that third pair, kind of guy for the Devils who kills penalties, and he'd probably be a pretty good partner for Ty Smith if they decide to play him on the left side, or if Will Butcher is playing on the third pair. I think that'd be a pretty good match. I don't know. Does he even have a 7-figure cap hit? I feel like he probably wouldn't be helping out Vegas's cap situation too much. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They don't have a ton of options, I think, because of the internal caps.
Something that we'll keep our eye on over the next couple of days, because if they've already announced basically that Pietrangelo is coming, they have to make moves quickly, very quickly.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. So
they might make a move in the next 2 hours, probably. Who knows?
Yeah. So we'll see. Shall we move on to the Devils now?
Before we move on, I just got an update from Zoom.
Yeah.
It says running out of time.
So we'll talk about something for the next like 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap this one up, and then we'll
we're good.
Yeah, I saw he added minutes, so we're good.
He added minutes. Oh, good.
I saw there was unlimited.
All right, great.
All right, so let's move on.
Let's just keep going.
All right, so I guess do we want to, before we can really dissect, we did the draft stuff, but we can talk about it again, but we can save that for the end. I guess first order of business, I guess, would be breaking down the Ryan Murray trade.
Oh yeah.
For a fifth round pick, like I was surprised. I thought the Devils were going to have to maybe give up a roster player potentially to get Ryan Murray. I know former second overall pick, 2012, I believe it was.
Yeah.
They got Everett. And then, he came on, hot to start his career, and then he kind of died off a bit. I mean, injuries haven't really helped. It's just a matter of Ryan Murray if he can stay healthy. But when he's healthy, like he is a top 4 defenseman, and then at worst he plays on your bottom pair, which isn't also a bad thing because, I mean, he'd be great to have as in your defensive core, even if he is on your bottom pair. But I think you're gonna see him either play on the top pair with PK Subban, or you're going to see him play more on the second pairing with Damon Severson, which I think is probably going to be the more logical route they go.
Yeah.
But
I do see that.
What do you guys think? Like, I thought the Devils got a steal especially for a fifth.
I thought that was like Costco size bargain. You know what I mean? You got great, excellent value for 2021 5th round pick already for a top 4 pairing defenseman. I mean, 1 and 2, 3 and 4 out of 5 and 6. I would take that any day of the week.
Yeah, that was a really good trade. I would have never. You never heard like Ryan Murray's name that he was available or anything like that. But I guess when you looked at his contract situation, they only had a year. He only had a year left on it, and Columbus is trying to make some other moves. They were in on Taylor Hall apparently, but that didn't work out. I think they're in on Mikael Granlund as well.
Probably
I saw
Hoffman
this morning.
as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think Hoffman would be one guy that I think they'd be interested in. So yeah, I mean, getting Ryan Murray for a 5th round pick is it's a pretty sweet deal. It's like Jake said though, like health is the issue with him. If he's only played in 60 games or more once since the 2015-16 season. So if you can get, I think if you're the Devils, you'd be happy if you got like 60 games out of him going forward because of his back problems. But when he's in the lineup, he's a top pair, even defenseman. Yeah. I mean, he's really good in transition too, which is something the Devils have struggled with from their blue line in recent years. They don't really have defensemen who are great in transition other than Butcher and Severson. So I think he's going to help a lot in that regard as well. And he's just all around solid two-way defenseman that they haven't had in a while. And yeah, I mean, definitely an improvement from what they had before. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was surprised considering the fact, number one, that Ryan Murray was available, and number two, that it cost the Devils very little to nothing. I mean, I don't think that fifth round pick, is going to be something that we're going to regret down the road. You never know, but you know, when Ryan Murray was talking with the Devils, on their media avail a couple of days ago, he said that he felt the writing was on the wall. That at this point in his career, considering where the Blue Jackets were going, that he was probably going to get moved. Also, the fact that Columbus has been, trying very hard to get a top six winger. They tried Hall, it didn't work out. They could still very well be trying to acquire Patrick Laine if that's still a thing. I don't know. I haven't heard anything from it. But I was talking with somebody who is a Columbus Blue Jackets fan, and he said that talking about it from the Devils' perspective is that you'll love it as long as he's healthy and be indifferent if he's not. So it's one of those things where if he stays healthy, we'll be very happy to have him on the team and he'll contribute very well. If he doesn't, it's not going to be the end of the world, because if he doesn't do well, the Devils just won't bring him back. And maybe they move him at the deadline if there's somebody there. He also said that a fifth rounder is a steal for him, but given the importance of cap, Columbus is okay with it. And apparently the Chicago Blackhawks were very interested in acquiring him this past deadline for a second round pick, but Columbus didn't want to do it. So unfortunately they kind of got less value for this guy than what they possibly could have gotten at the deadline. But I like that, Fitzy did this because it also gives the Devils an excuse to have one of their younger defensemen take a little bit more time to develop, give them an extra year to, develop wherever they may be, whether it's in the minors or it's still in juniors, whatever the case may be. But I still think that there's probably two spots left on the defense that need to be filled, whether that's trading for another defenseman. I don't know who's available as a free agent. I'm actually scared to wonder who's a free agent.
Honestly, I would care less about the free agency. Speaking of young and developing, the KHL just had, how did Mikhail Vorobiev, known that 18-year-old Shakir Muhammadulin was back there, remains a mystery, and he scored a goal 10 hours ago in the KHL. So, boys, we got ourselves a nice young 20th overall pick who's going to start to pan out, gain some muscle. When he does come over from the KHL, maybe goes to bingo, maybe comes to the NHL route, because we have Ryan Murray developing, these kids for at least 2 years on that contract.
Yeah.
It buys them time. So this is good.
Yeah. But bottom line with Ryan Murray is simply that this is a low risk. I don't know if you call it high reward, maybe call it middle reward.
Yes.
He's just kind of like, it's one of those moves that's just going to help with the depth of the defense. And one of the things that Ryan Murray does very well is actually play the position that he's supposed to be playing, which is defense. He's going to help out from the defensive standpoint a lot more than the offensive standpoint, which is good. Just help. And again, this was a move that, went by with what Fitzgerald was saying. He was trying to build this team for the future and also to try to compete, to an extent and just be competitive now. So it was a good move. Didn't cost very much. Certainly not the move that I was expecting, but it's still a very solid move nonetheless.
Yeah, it's all about asset management, near and long term. So let me put it this way. So I'm looking at the cap hit for basically this year. So you have everyone from Nico all the way down to Jesper Bratt, who are currently under contract, and one of them is a restricted free agent. That's only adding up to $32,338,333. Defenseman PK Subban to Murray to Severson, Butcher, Carrick, over $22,999,000. Okay, so let's call it $23 million for defense. That defense just got a little bit younger, but the Devils are still pretty stable contract-wise for the next 1 or 2 years. Goaltending, as long as we get Blackwood locked in as our RFA, I think he's going to get 3-year bridge deal. At least $4.5 million is what I think he's going to get.
Yeah, I think like Alex pointed out, I think on Twitter, shortly after it happened, that the Tristan Jarry contract with Pittsburgh is probably going to be where the Devils are kind of looking to go here with Blackwood. 3 years, 3.9, 4.2 million around that area. But yeah, that's about the area I think where Fitzgerald and the Devils are going to look at.
Yeah, I would be surprised if his deal wasn't basically the same as Tristan Jarry's. I would think it could be the exact same thing, honestly.
What I like is that the Devils have made it clear that Blackwood's the number one guy.
Yes.
They didn't, excuse my language, but they didn't dick around and try to, take Askarov at number 7 or move up in the draft to try to take him. They ended up still taking a young goaltender nonetheless in Nico Dawes, but at the same time, it's been made very clear and very public that Mackenzie Blackwood is the goaltender of the future. And bringing in, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute, but bringing in a guy like Corey Crawford is more of a message of, we're actually trying to give you insurance to help you out, to bring in a goalie that we feel comfortable with that could play 30 games and you don't have to play 40, 50 games next season and possibly start to regress at a very young age. So that's what I like. And I agree with you, Alex, 100% that the Tristan Jarry deal is going to be probably what the Devils are going to look at and go for. And I don't think, Blackwood would be against it. The other thing that's interesting is that all the Devils RFAs, none of them filed for arbitration, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
they're the only.
None of them have arbitration rights, so they don't have that power to them right now. So, that'd be why. It's a good thing they don't have to do arbitration. Can get kind of messy, so it's good that they didn't have that. They don't have to deal with that this offseason.
So I think the Devils. I think right now, Fitzgerald is still probably focusing on improving the team for the now. He may not be done. I think that by the time we get closer to training camp, Bratt and Blackwood will most likely have some sort of a deal done. I don't think that the Devils are going to wait around very long to do this. I think Fitzgerald probably told both of them that they were going to get a deal done, but he wanted to do some other things first. And I think that that's why it's been kind of a smooth sailing ship as of right now, that, nothing is happening. And as far as Palmieri's situation, Jake brought up, if we're at the deadline and Palmieri's there, you move them. I would say it this way. You have to look at where are the Devils at that point next season, what exactly is being offered, and also how Palmieri's doing as well. If Palmieri's your best player, if he's like on pace for another 30 goals, but you're not getting a decent amount of offerings for him at the deadline, it may just not be worth doing, especially if Palmieri has said publicly that he really wants to be a Devil long term. And I'm not against it either. But we'll see. But going back to just kind of wrap up the Ryan Murray situation, it's a good move. And if it doesn't work out, we can either just leave it. Well, can't really do that because he's a free agent, but we could just let him walk and, no harm, no foul.
Yeah. Before we get into the Corey Crawford thing, I just want to read a couple tweets here regarding the Pietrangelo Vegas situation. Chris Johnson just tweeted like 4 minutes ago. Believe Vegas Golden Knights will have to make a corresponding move before officially papering and registering Alex Pietrangelo's new contract because they're available summer salary cap space. And I retweeted Cap Friendly 22 minutes ago, and they said, our assumption is that the contract was signed after 5 p.m. Eastern and therefore will not be officially registered by the league until tomorrow. This would then buy Vegas some additional time to make the necessary space required to accommodate Pietrangelo's AAV under the cap. So
there's a good chance that a move is going to be made within the next couple of hours.
All right, so I guess we're not sleeping tonight.
I guess we're not sleeping unless the Devils aren't involved, which then I'm.
Yeah, but even then, I'm kind of interested to see how it all plays out. So But
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
talking-
it's happening in the next 24 hours, so
Yeah,
you know
like-
something's going down.
I'm,
I feel
I'm
like if-
talking.
I-
I'm talking with the guys at the Hockey Pod Network that I work with, and we're all like, yeah, we're all staying up late tonight. We gotta see what's gonna happen here.
Yeah, I feel like Joe, Alex, and I are going to be probably talking till about probably between 11 or 12 at this rate. If
Yeah.
this is the rate this is going, we're not getting any sleep. So might as well stock your fridge. with
I
Red Bulls.
hope we wrap this up and finish this podcast before anything happens, because I got I'm not ready to stay up till 12:30 or 1 talking about 3 moves that were made within the next 3-4 hours. But I would, considering you brought that up, I would probably expect Vegas to make some move or two within the next couple of hours.
I mean, we're all biased here, and we're all fans of this team. So I mean, we have a bias towards the Devils. Like, let's not forget that. Like,
Yeah, of course.
but we have the cap space to take on somebody. So one has to assume that we have to be one of the teams that might be most likely to take on somebody from Vegas. No?
Again, it all depends on, does the guy that we're getting from Vegas, whoever that is he going to fit in with what we're trying to do long term? Bringing in a guy like Pacioretty is not necessarily something that would say it's going to help us down the road. Is Pacioretty going to still be the same player by the time the Devils are competing for a Stanley Cup? No, not even close. And that's a lot of money to take up. Joe, I think don't you have their cap situation up in front of you?
yes, I actually can do that right now.
What is
Um,
Pacioretty? Just remind me what Pacioretty's contract is at this point. Like, what exactly, what is left?
Okay, so Patches is locked up until the end of the 22-23 season. That's $21 million for the next total 3 years.
What is his
So-
AAV?
What's this? Yeah, what's
$7 million.
7
For
million.
Pacioretty.
And he's what, 32?
31, going to be 32.
See, that's 7 million for a dude that's in his early 30s. I mean, we paid a crap load. We're already paying a crap load to PK Subban, who's in his 30s. And so,
What a trade.
do we want to do that again? Do we feel comfortable doing it? I mean, if we're taking on half of his salary and giving him only 4, I'm more okay with it. But, Riley Smith, I like where Alex is thinking about Riley Smith. I think that would make more sense. Riley Smith isn't in his 30s yet, is he?
He's
Let me double
29.
check that.
29.
29.
So he also kind of gets out of that range, because again, Fitzgerald made it clear, 26 or younger with some amount of, control. Vegas doesn't really have anybody that fits into that.
Other than White Cloud and Nicholas Waugh.
Yeah, but neither one of them is making anything.
Yeah.
It wouldn't.
They
I mean, they
hardly
would have to
make
be
much.
included in the deal. Like, it would have to be something like the Devils get Pacioretty and also White Cloud. Like, that would have to be the sweetener in order for the Devils to be okay with taking on 7 million over the next 2-3 years for Pacioretty's contract. So
Or maybe they have to throw in that Devils second round pick that they use in the Gusev trade.
right. They just reacquire it back. But
okay? So like Corey Crawford, guys. Like, what do
Yeah.
you? Let's get on to Corey Crawford.
another deal that was made at 10 o'clock at night, because I couldn't, just when I was
Yeah,
down
like
on my
this-
phone.
Does Fitzgerald just wait for all these other GMs to go to sleep? and
Yeah,
then just
if
swoops
Fitzgerald's
in?
going to make a deal with the Golden Knights, it's going to be at like 11:30.
Yeah.
It's going to be late. Like, we're not even going to be like ready for that. We caught completely off guard. But I like the Corey Crawford deal because it's a 2-year deal for a guy who has Stanley Cup experience. His age is certainly something that is concerning. You wonder how much left does he have in the tank. He proved a lot during the bubble, during his time in the bubble. That what was it, game 4, where he made something like 50 saves against the Vegas Golden Knights, played really well. If the Devils' defense is improved, which,
I think it has improved.
remains to be,
honestly, a
but
little bit.
it still remains to be seen, because we have to see how Lindy Ruff does with this team. Corey Crawford could be a really solid veteran backup for the next 2 years. And if he's still playing at a pretty solid level, he can compete with Mackenzie Blackwood and make him that much better. So, I actually thought, considering when, the day started on Friday, I actually thought that the Devils were going to end up with Marc-Andre Fleury, considering what I was hearing. I was hearing the Devils were talking to Vegas about trying to acquire Fleury, which I was like, that's not a bad idea. We could just, leave him open in the expansion draft after 1 year if it doesn't, if the parties don't agree with each other. But signing Corey Crawford, I thought was actually a pretty solid, low risk. Also another, like, Joe was explaining before, kind of a medium type of reward. He could play 30 games and give Blackwood more rest than he's gotten recently. So I think it was a solid move. And the fact that he grew up a Devils fan doesn't really hurt either.
No, I think it's good because I'm gonna go in on this one because this is my area to talk about with the goaltending. I thought I was happy with it. I thought New Jersey was gonna do something because we all know as Devils fans, the Devils are always do a move where you're like, really? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what were you thinking? But like when I seen the Corey Crawford sign, I was ecstatic. Like, because Schneider's wasn't the goalie that he used to be, and then now having Crawford, you have basically a 1A or 1B, whatever you want to call him. Corey Crawford can start games and play stretches. So if Blackwood struggles, you can throw Crawford into the net consistently, and he's probably going to give you most nights a really solid effort in net. Yeah, he might let the odd soft goal in a game. He's known for doing that every now and then, but what goalie also isn't. So
yeah,
not every hockey player is perfect. So I mean, like for the Devils, I think it's great because now you take the pressure off of Mackenzie Blackwood, because you started to see sort of down the stretch during the season, even though we weren't doing very good, is Nazardine had to lay off playing Blackwood as much down the stretch there, even though we weren't, challenging for a playoff spot, because he was probably getting exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to run a goalie into the ground.
No, and Schneider was so bad. The Devils were basically forced to play Blackwood on back-to-back nights when they were playing. And most times teams playing a back-to-back, unless you're battling for a playoff spot down the stretch, you're playing your backup goalie one of those nights. So, I mean, now it's nice knowing as a fan we can go back to having, Blackwood start one game, Corey Crawford start the other game. If one struggles, the other can ride it out for a bit and, help the team out. And I think Corey Crawford, you'll find when he plays, I think you're going to find he's going to steal the Devils some games.
Yeah, honestly,
he's underrated for his age. Like, people think he was overrated because he was playing in Chicago. That's why he was good. But I don't think so. I think Corey Crawford's actually a really good goalie. He just maybe not what he was, a couple years ago when he led the Hawks to a couple Stanley Cups, but
yeah,
so he's still going to be a solid goalie. He's going to be he's a good pickup for the Devils, especially at that money. And then you saw Thomas Greiss get paid, etc. But I would rather Corey Crawford over, a lot of these guys' backups that we're signing. I'm just glad the Devils didn't acquire James Reimer. Like, as good as Carolina's goaltending was, I watched James Reimer enough when he was up the road here, and he's not as good as everybody makes him out to be. He's not.
You don't like Optimus Rhyme?
No, I don't.
The only person I think in the NHL that still likes him is probably Steve Dangle. He's probably the only person that still
he was just doing what about Andreas Janssen? I think yesterday.
Did he get upset? Was he upset about it? I'm sure he was.
I'm sure I saw him go bonkers after all the signings, and then he goes on to rant about Joey Anderson and then Andreas Janssen and Rachel Dory and this and that. It was funny to see how he brought up like forward Devils executive.
You pay when $40 million of your cap is to like 4 players. That's what happens. You give way too much money to people, and you end up end up having to give up assets. And this is what Vegas has to do. Vegas has become the Toronto of the West. That's what they become by doing what they just did.
Alex, what do you think on the Corey Crawford thing?
I love it. I mean, I wrote about the free agent goaltenders the Hockey Writers about a month ago now, and Corey Crawford was on my list. And I think of the guys available between Crawford, Grice, Hudobin, and who's the other guy? Cam Talbot. Crawford was my favorite. People like you said, people like want to say he's overrated because he played on the Hawks, but the Blackhawks defense has been a dumpster fire for like 3 seasons, and he was still making saves at a high level. They gave up the Blackhawks, I think, over the last 3 seasons, or at least the last 2 seasons, given up the most expected goals against per 60 minutes in the league at 5-on-5, and Crawford was still making saves. He has the third highest high danger save percentage over the last 3 seasons in the NHL. He's just still a really good goalie, and I mean, there's really like, I don't want to say there's no downside to the signing, but I mean, I think I don't think the Devils could have done better. I know a lot of Devils fans wanted Thomas Grice, but Crawford's a better
did
goalie
too.
than Grice still, and there's going to be a significant upgrade in net for the Devils next season. Like last season, anytime a goalie that not named Blackwood made a start for the Devils, you were like, oh well, this is probably a loss. So that's
Yeah.
not going to be the case with Corey Crawford. They're going to have a chance on most nights when he starts too. And even if the team has an off night, here and there, Crawford could step in and maybe like pull one out where they don't really deserve to win. So yeah, it's a big upgrade. I really don't think the Devils could have done a better job. Even if they were to get a sweetener for Fleury, I don't think that would have been the right move on their part. I think Crawford is the best they could have done. And yeah, it's a pretty good 1A, 1B to have with him and Blackwood.
I mean, we also got another one, and we brought Scott Wedgwood back.
Yeah.
Hey.
And I don't know if you guys would agree, but I would say that I think Wedgwood has probably gotten better since he left New Jersey.
Yep.
Which, I mean, look, he went to Arizona, and it didn't. You knew he wasn't going to be that long. Now his name's going to be on the Stanley Cup, which, I think that's the case because I think he played one game.
He was dressed.
Yeah, he was. This is the
I'm
best.
sure. I'm sure there's some sort of implications before that thing gets submitted to
Yeah.
Montreal in
But
that medal
look, if Corey
description.
Crawford doesn't work out, one of the things that they could do is expose him in the expansion draft, or they could trade him because he doesn't have a no trade clause the first year, and then he has a 10-team no trade clause in year two, and he's making only about $4 million in year two, like not even making that much. And Wedgwood is just a guy that could obviously give us some depth and also just a little bit of talent, I would say, to improve the minor league team as well. And if things don't go well with Crawford, Wedgwood, I feel like, would be a solid backup. And I think Wedgwood's only 26? He's not that young. He's not that old.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more just an AHL signing. He hasn't really played too much in the NHL, I think, since he was with the
AHL.
Devils. So, and plus there's Gilles Sen, who I think the Devils probably value him a lot higher
They
than
still have Schmid. They still have Schmid.
Schmid,
Cole Brady.
Yeah,
Nico
Schmid's still in the
Dawes.
USHL though. So
Right. And then they got Nico Dawes, Cole Brady, guys like
Yeah.
that. They have a lot of options. But I mean, I think for just the Devil OG fans, I think that they're just happy to have him back. Regardless, talking about it from Wedgwood's perspective. But the Corey Crawford signing is a good one. And honestly, I think he's actually going to perform very well if the Devils defense can block a few more shots than they usually do.
even if their defense doesn't improve that much, I mean, he was playing behind one of the league's worst defense, if not the worst defense in the Blackhawks. So I think he can handle it. And I would think even if the Devils defense doesn't improve that much, it's still going to probably be better than what he was dealing with the Blackhawks. So yeah, I'd feel pretty good about him still being to perform at a high level.
One of the things that I think is important is that they tighten up on their giveaways, and they tighten up and increase their takeaways over giveaways, because last year there were a bunch of guys, that were moved, through free agency, another one that was traded away who gave up too many pucks, just like, Wayne Simmons was one of them. Hall, last year gave up too many scoring chances to opposing teams.
Yep.
I think this team's going to be a little bit tighter. I would hope to see Lindy Ruff and whoever's going to be running the defensive side of things would teach them to be a little bit more careful, but not too careful to the point that you're so conservative that you lose possession because the other team's coming for you. So that's what I was checking last night. Kind of like Hockey Reference, just checking those stats. I was like, okay, well, I can see Jack Hughes flipping those numbers of takeaways and giveaways ratio and get the giveaways part to be lesser than. And so if he can do like 25% less of the giveaways, he'll be a much better off top center, which I think is important because you increase your offensive and defensive capabilities as a team.
Good point.
Yes, I got nothing to go on
Yeah, I
with
think
that. You
that-
basically nailed that.
Yeah, no, I got nothing to say about that either. So
That was more of just what we're all hoping for. And the Devils still have to find another assistant coach. I'm still big on Sergei Gonchar. If he's still there, I think he's still available. I don't recall.
yeah, I don't think anyone's hired him yet.
I mean, Pittsburgh
But-
guys, Fitzgerald.
Yeah, it makes sense. But we'll see. And then also you're hearing about, the Devils might probably announce that they're going to get a goalie coach within the next couple of days, considering what I'm hearing. But then they want to create what I guess they called it a goalie development.
Yeah, they want to change up the way they have their whole goalie thing structured. So I don't remember the quotes off the top of my head, but
Yeah, they're talking about
There's-
Clemson and Marty working together.
yeah, they would kind of like I guess they would head the department a little bit, and then they'd have like an NHL goalie coach under them. And then I
They would
guess
have their own separate
that would work
department in the organization.
to even like working with Binghamton too. So
That's really interesting.
well, yeah, I mean, teams have changed a lot the way they structure their development programs and I guess strength and conditioning as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if goaltending wasn't the only thing they kind of changed with their development structure. I think they might want to have
Defense forwards.
make some more additions to their development department for defensemen and forwards, but that might come at a later time. I don't know if anything's imminent there. This is just me guessing, by the way. I don't have inside
No,
information.
it's okay.
So
I was going to say something similar about like how Marty, I believe, was, probably getting a little tired of the hockey ops side. And I think they're going to, like, I know with the John Chayka thing, they're trying to have to wait a few years because they have to obey certain, procedures through the NHL.
They still want to bring him in.
Yeah, but on a lower level to work with like analytics and stuff like that, like I would say for a few years, and then you promote them up to hockey ops. But you should have someone who should be temporary replacing Marty's spot as hockey ops and have him work the business side, unless otherwise.
Well, wasn't that what Marty was hired to do originally? He was originally hired to just be on the business side of things, and then things kind of got out of control because of what was going on in the front office when Shiro was still here. I wouldn't, if that's the case, then I don't put it past him. I don't think Marty ever wanted to come back to New Jersey to be involved with the team per se. I think he wanted to learn more of the business side because, sometimes guys just want to be more, businessmen than really just continuing to be involved in the game itself. I have one hot take about who I think should be offered an assistant coach job. Sergey Breland is still with Binghamton. And I know he's not a defensive guy, but I would say that if you moved Elaine Nazardine to maybe work more on the defensive side, and you put Sergey Breland working more with the forwards, along with Mark Recchi, I think that would actually be good. And I think that Sergey Breland deserves an opportunity because he's been in the organization for so long, being a coach, being a development coach. I think he deserves an opportunity. Like, we all thought that Rick Kowalski deserved an opportunity considering what he was doing when the team was still in Albany, and he proved that he couldn't do it. Well, I think they should give Sergey Brylin an opportunity.
I think having Breland aside of, let's say you just talked about Mark Recchi, would be a great, mentor, and having him along with that. And you have guys like Gusev, and you have kids in the minors like Malzev and Sharon Govich who speak Russian. And then you have Muhammad Dulin coming in years down the road, maybe 3-4 years, who knows? You got someone that is bilingual, speaking Russian and English, and so you're able to translate and help these kids assimilate. And sometimes they become men who become better performers on the ice. And you also have Patrick Eliash over in Czechia, who's doing a little bit of scouting along with that assistant coaching at the higher national level for the Czech national team, and having insight on guys like Jaromir Pitlick does a lot to help a franchise, and having people with such close ties to the organization really benefit the team near and long term, growing together. So if you add Breland as an assistant coach, working with the forwards, and have the other guy do a little bit less on the forward stuff and work on the defense, I think would be more beneficial now than ever.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think Sergey Brylin deserves a shot. So Andreas, last night, obviously we made a trade with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Was that last night or Saturday night? I don't even know anymore. Saturday night, right?
Saturday.
Yeah.
I had to do an article on it.
I'm recording this on Monday, if anybody didn't realize that already.
So Andreas Janssen for Joey Anderson. So what were your guys' initial thoughts? Alex, you've been sitting there. You look like you're starting to doze off and fall asleep.
No, I'm good. It's what time is it? It's only 8:00. I'm good. I'm focused.
It's only 8:07. We haven't gotten to the crazy trade moves yet.
Yeah. So I guess Andreas Johnson, I like him a lot. He's not like a standout like two-way forward. Offense is really his thing. But that's what the Devils are getting. That's what they brought him in for, is to score goals and put up points. They're not asking him to go out there and kill penalties. I mean, I guess they could, but that's really not what the main reason they brought him in. He's a really efficient scorer at 5-on-5 since coming into the NHL. He became a full-time NHLer in 2018-19. And since then, he's averaged 2.1 points per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is it's close to the top 50 in the league with forwards with 1,000 minutes played at 5-on-5. He's averaged 45 points per 82 games. So the offense is definitely there. I think they'll have, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, they'll have options where to play him in the lineup because he can play left or right wing. So that's always good. For me, he's probably a second line forward. At best, I don't think he can play on the top line because I just don't think he has the two-way game, but you never know. You have to try things. But I can see him on the second line with like Jack Hughes and Kyle Palmieri or something like that. Or you put Jesper Bratt down left wing there and you flip Johnson to the right wing with Jack Hughes. I mean, there's going to be a lot of options, and he's definitely going to bring an offensive lift to the team that they were looking for. He's not going to turn them into the highest scoring team in the league, but their offense should definitely be a lot better with him on the roster.
About earlier, when I was talking about players on a certain line with foot speed, I find that Andreas Jansson's speed, his foot speed, along with Jack Hughes' foot speed, perfectly matched, kind of like how he matched the foot speed of Austin Matthews, which is a perfect sample size for me watching the highlights. And you can just see how he's effortless, like gliding through his own zone and getting up the neutral zone from 0 to 60 in that amount of Mach. And to me, when I saw him blocking a shot and taking up that lane, just like closing his own 5-hole on a shooter, and then he turns it into a nice little breakaway, and he also finds really good ways to evade defenders and get open and sneak in and do little tap-ins. But he also has really silky mitts. I mean, he may not be a goal scorer, but he's the guy that will backhand, forehand a goaltender out of his pants. but I could see him playing with Jack Hughes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you made about foot speed. That was a little bit of an issue with not Hughes himself, but with his line mates last season. He was playing a lot with guys like Pavel Zacha and Wayne Simmons and who I'm blanking out here, Miles Wood. So
Bam, bam.
and yeah, so when he did play with those guys, he didn't get the best results, but it's not really his fault because it's just not, those aren't wingers who are kind of complement his makeup as a player. So yeah, Johnson is definitely that. And you put him on a line with a defensively responsible winger like Kyle Palmieri, and I guess it can negate a little bit of the defensive issues you might have pairing Johnson and Hughes together. But yeah, it's a good point about the foot speed. I think that's why he's a good fit with Hughes, because he matches his kind of style. He's a skilled winger.
This was definitely a guy that was rumored to be moved, not just with the Devils, but just rumored to be moved in
general.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that probably there were multiple teams that were interested in this kid. And you knew that once the Maple Leafs made that move, if you guys remember when they traded Kasperi Kapanen back to the Pittsburgh Penguins, you knew that they were going to have to make a bunch of more moves to really satisfy, getting cap space and making moves. So Andreas Janssen was going to have to be somebody that, I'm sure the Maple Leafs didn't want to give up, but they had no choice, considering the money that he's making and the fact that they have to clear cap space. And the fact that they only had to give up, talking from the Devils standpoint, the fact that they only had to give up Joey Anderson, a player of, and I say this with the utmost respect because I was actually a pretty big fan of Joey Anderson, a guy that really didn't fit in with what the Devils were doing. I think that when he was given the opportunity, there were times where he would step up and he would be in the play and you would notice him. And other times he would just disappear for 30 minutes. Like you wouldn't even know that he was still on the bench. And I'm saying that with, again, the fact that it wasn't fully his fault, considering the situation that he was put into, considering the situation a lot of these young players on this team the last couple of years have been put into.
It's all about the coaching and being managed with the guys who are on your line. And there was a lot of dysfunction.
Right. And so the Devils get a guy like Mango, and he's I know we have
the smoothie.
I love it.
Yeah.
We have Crow, we have a Crow, we have a Goose, we have a Mango. I don't know what else we have at this
Crow.
Yeah, he mentioned that.
I did Crow first.
You got that in.
But we get a young player that he even said, Janssen was talking with Amanda Stein earlier today that, he didn't like the way the season went for him because he had an injury and because, his production was not where he wanted it to be. So this is a motivated player that now is going to be playing with a young team. And a lot of people want to give him crap because they said, oh, look at who he was playing with when he was doing all the things he was doing. He was playing with Tavares, playing with Matthews, playing with Marner, guys like that. And he's gonna have a lot to prove, and I think that he's gonna fit in seamlessly with this team. Otherwise, and look, even if it doesn't work out, let's be honest, the Devils didn't really give up anything for him. Joey Anderson,
reward for him.
Is Joey Anderson gonna be on the Maple Leafs roster in the fourth line maybe? But most likely he's gonna end up being with the Marlies. But nonetheless, I think this was a move that is gonna benefit the Devils wholeheartedly. And I think he's, whether he plays on the first line or not, which I don't think he will, I think that first line is for probably Bratt, considering. But Janssen could just, he could go on a tear early on in the season and he might get bumped up.
Yeah.
We have to just remember with all of these guys, not just the new guys, but the guys that we still have, how are they going to mesh with Lindy Ruff once training camp starts, whenever that is, and how they look? Because I don't even think we're going to have preseason. I honestly think we're just going to jump right into it.
No, there's going to be a preseason, I think, but
I would say 2 games at the.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to be, but I think they had said recently that training camp they were planning on starting it like November 15th or something like that. So, and if there's targeting a January 1st for the regular season, then there's probably gonna be some preseason action because you can't just jump into it if you're a team like the Devils who would have
can't do
gone
what
like
the
a
NFL
year without playing almost. So
You can't do what the National Football League did. You can't do that
yeah,
because you're asking for a lot of players to get hurt very early on in the season. But
yeah,
bottom line is that I like this move. I've liked basically every move that Fitzgerald has made because it's made with what he's been talking about and what he's trying to build this team around. He's been bluntly honest with where we are. And really, the expectation for Devils fans, and I'm just speaking with not just you guys, but everybody that's listening, is simply that don't have an expectation that this team is going to do a 180 and all of a sudden we're going to be back in the playoffs. We're probably going to be more competitive. We might lose a lot more games by one goal. We might lose a lot of close games, but we're going to probably be competitive in a lot of the games that we play. And we're going to be a tough team we're not just going to be a pushover team. I think we're going to end up being a middle of the pack team, but we're going to show a lot of good flashes of young, exciting hockey and bringing in an offensive veteran head coach like Lindy Ruff, who has proven time and time again he can develop players into goal scoring machines. Look what he did with Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn. He helped elevate their game. Maybe, it's harder to say that considering how they did in the postseason this year, but he elevated their game. One of you guys brought up Daniel Briere. I think it was you, Joe, that brought that up.
that was Jake.
Right. Daniel Briere. And yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And he took the Buffalo Sabres to the Stanley Cup, and I've said, who else has been able to do that since or gotten close? So, I mean, this is my point. He's an offensive guy that was an assistant coach on the Rangers that was asked to focus on defense. That was not even close to what he was known to do. He was put into a situation that he couldn't win. So I'm optimistic in saying we have to give these guys an opportunity. So far, Fitzgerald has done a lot of good, very little to no bad at all. There were a little bit of question marks with some of the draft picks, but that's going to come every year, no matter who you take. But it's all about the development of those players. And I think the moves that Fitzgerald made have shown that Fitzgerald wants to be competitive now and be ultra competitive in the future.
I'll throw this in there. So you have Bratt, you have Janssen, you also have Boqvist, and you're going to have a trio of Swedes motivated.
I forgot we had Boqvist. I really feel bad that and did he have? I think he had what?
Don't worry about that.
He has like 5. He has 5 points in like 2 games. The last like 2 games he's been playing, and apparently he's been on a tear from what I'm hearing.
Oh yeah, in the Allsvenskan.
Yeah, I heard he's been dominating whatever league.
Yeah, usually under 20 players usually play under the SHL,
right?
In the Allsvenskan, and it's the same way with Arseny Gritsyuk, who's playing in the MHL. For anyone who's wondering what the hell I'm talking about, MHL is for the under 20 players, like where Askarov came from. And so if you're not in the KHL at the big league,
is that like the minor leagues for the SHL? Is that basically what that is?
It's basically the tier below, if I can remember that properly.
That makes sense.
Usually that's where like Gunler came up from. That's where, if I can remember, if Holtz came up from before they hit the SHL and Raymond.
Okay.
So,
I mean, that's, look, we have a lot of young players in our system, not just who are, going to be playing in the NHL next year, but guys that are going to be given, a lot of good opportunities in the next 2 to 3 years. And we have some guys that I think could step up that we don't even have expectations for. Like, Mohamed Doulin, we don't, for all we know, he could be a star defenseman. And we just got one of the best, moves that, this franchise has ever made. It still was a surprise. And I think everybody here would agree that he was not on on any of our radars at pick 20.
Yeah.
You can look back to Joe's spreadsheet, and I'm pretty sure Mohamed Doulin was not.
No. Mohamed Doulin, I had to put in after pick 20 was made to be openly blunt and honest. No one got that pick right on the 7 guys. No,
we were not close, but nonetheless.
We did nonetheless have one guy predict having what was that pick? God damn. It was having, I think, one guy got a scarf right at 11.
Oh, I think I said that. I think I said Escarapa. I don't remember, but nonetheless, I would say this, guys. Fitzgerald knows what he's doing. He's prepared for this opportunity for a long time. You know, he worked under Ray Shero in Pittsburgh. He worked under Ray Shero in, with the Devils for several years. And there was a lot of people talking that Fitzgerald was one of those guys that needed to be given an opportunity. And I'm glad that the Devils jumped on it. I'm glad they didn't, try to, wait out as long, longer than they should. And Fitzgerald has already proven this guy's a man on a mission, and he's going to make this team better from top to bottom, whether it's on the first line, second line, third line, fourth line. He's going to improve the team and create really good depth and really good talent from, everywhere on this team. So I think that's something to really give him credit for. And I don't think he's done. I think there's more moves to be made. I mean, you still have to re-sign Blackwood and Bratt. So there will definitely be more moves made before the season starts.
Yeah, I think so too. Is there any other thing you guys want to touch on?
The only thing else that I wanted to bring up that I would just, ask you guys is, what are your thoughts on Taylor Hall signing the 1-year deal with Buffalo? Because I'll be honest with you,
Alex is laughing because
he's going to pay more in New York State taxes than he did in New Jersey.
That was the thing. I didn't. If you would have told me that when the Devils traded Taylor Hall back last year or earlier this year, you had told me that he would have ended up signing with Buffalo, I would not have believed you. This is my feeling on. I'm just going to make my feeling, and then you guys can go. This move makes sense from Taylor Hall's perspective for several reasons. One is that he gets to play with Jack Eichel, where his stats will probably get increased tenfold. His stats will look a lot better because he's playing with Jack Eichel. Number two is this: it's a 1-year deal that he could be traded to a cup contender in the middle of next season and go somewhere and, win a cup then. And then he could just go back to free agency when the cap is more, I don't know how much it's going to go up, but, it'll go up somewhat, I would imagine.
Still hit a certain threshold of revenue. They said around 4.9 billion recently, which was like months ago. So here's the thing. If I'm Taylor Hall, I'm betting on my knee, honestly. He's not the same guy as he was, in Edmonton and New Jersey before his injuries occurred. I think he's starting to slow down a little bit, but he still has the speed. But I think he has to get with it and work with Jack Eichel and play on the same line with him. And because they all have some sort of a grudge with their own, like teams and whatever, I think they'd be like, not maybe the odd couple, but maybe they'll be like stepbrothers. They'll work better together. And if everything goes to the wet the bed in Buffalo, maybe both will get traded.
Great minds think alike, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was a little surprised that he chose Buffalo, because it's like I guess the best way for me to put it, I mean, we're doing a hockey podcast, but being a diehard Buffalo Bills fan, I just have to ask, until recently, Buffalo hired their coach and Sean McDermott, the Bills weren't relevant at all. And then obviously you're seeing this year that they're showing that they can keep up now with the upper echelon teams of the NFL. But it's basically the same thing. Like, who wants to go to Buffalo? It's cold. It's snow. Nobody wants to go there. I've been to the Bills games. It's a crappy town. The city is awful unless you go downtown and to the stadium where the Bills play. But other than that, it's not good. They're known for chicken wings. I mean,
yeah.
But when I seen that he signed with Buffalo, I mean, I was saying when Joe and Alex and I did sort of like a test run last night, I was saying
that's why I started laughing.
I was pissed off. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was mad because you played for us for 3 seasons.
He lied to us.
When we did the series and stuff when we were over in Sweden that they had filmed, and Taylor Hall made a comment where he said, "I can't see myself playing anywhere else other than New Jersey. It feels like home." Okay, at the time I got a little excited. We all did. We all do, and we hear that from our star players. But you learn that I took it with a grain of salt also because Zach Parise said the exact same thing. They all say what you want to hear, and they don't really follow through with it. So I guess like Paul Mary could be the same thing. I don't think he will, but maybe I'm wrong. I was kind of pissed off because you said to Devils fans basically after we booed you and whatnot because you weren't performing. I mean, it was deserved. He deserved to be booed. He wasn't performing. His attitude was showing on the bench that he was frustrated and he was causing problems, in the dressing room. That was the rumors that he was having in Edmonton too, and things were going right. As he became basically an asshole in the dressing room for around players, and it caused a cancer in the dressing room. That was the same thing here, but I mean, I was a little frustrated because you said to our entire fan base that you wanted to go somewhere to win, and then we trade you to help you go on a playoff run, and you only made the playoffs because the league expanded to 24 teams.
Right.
But you say your goal is to win a Stanley Cup, but why would you sign with Buffalo when somebody like Colorado offered you a contract? I mean, I would have took the less
money. He got less money for 1 year from Colorado than he did Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo gave him $8 million. I think Colorado only offered him 4.5 or 6.5. It was something.
6.5.
Right.
It was 6.5.
I will let's look at the facts on the ground about everything with Taylor Hall, especially because I've had a lot of people have different opinions of him from the Devils' perspective. When Taylor Hall made that comment, the Devils had just made the playoffs for the first time since 2012, and we were on the rise. If you remember that slogan that we all had to deal with, on the rise. Going into last year, the expectations were very high considering the moves that the Devils had made. Also, the fact that Taylor Hall was going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year was pressure. Taylor Hall's agent, and he's done this before, made it clear that he wasn't going to have Hall talk about or sign or discuss any sort of a long-term deal with the Devils until after the season. So the Devils right away were put into a situation that they didn't want to do. They probably would have rather signed him to a long-term deal and then made other moves afterwards, so that they didn't feel the pressure of having to make moves just to, convince Hall to stay long-term. Hall then ends up getting traded. And remember, Hall never asked to be traded. Hall just got traded. He didn't ask the Devils to be traded. And he got traded to Arizona because Arizona gave the Devils the best offer of anybody. Colorado did offer them something, but it wasn't to the Devils' liking. So Hall got traded to Arizona. We all knew the minute he got traded there, he's not going to go win a cup in Arizona. We knew that. Was he going to make the playoffs? It was 50-50. And then, as you mentioned, Jake, they got in because of the 2014 playoff. Hall wanted to, for a long time, at least the way his agent put it out there, was that regardless of the fact that there was COVID-19, regardless of the fact that the salary cap was going to stay the same, he still wanted a long-term deal with a Stanley Cup contender. Hall eventually got the realization that that was not going to happen. He was not going to get that from anybody. And I think the perception about Taylor Hall's on the ice is this. Taylor Hall is not a franchise savior. He is not your number one player. He is a nice piece to add on to a team that's already in a position to go win a cup. You know what I mean? He's like the last piece of the puzzle, if you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hall probably looked at all of his options and probably the only options he had, because everybody says, oh, he had like 25 teams call him. Well, there probably was only 2 teams that offered him anything. It was Buffalo or Colorado. And it was like, do you go to Colorado where you weren't going to be the first line left winger? You were not going to be that. and you were going to make very little money anyway? Or do you go to Buffalo, where you're on the first line with a star in Jack Eichel, you make it $8 million, and guess what? Is there any pressure from Hall to go win with Buffalo? Absolutely not. So Hall made the decision that was best for him for 1 year, and then
sorry to cut you off. Nate Schmidt traded to the Vancouver Canucks for a 3rd-round pick.
Oof.
What a stupid truth. Vancouver's made so many stupid moves today.
No, that's a really for a 3rd-round pick. That's pretty legit.
Well, that's the only thing they've done right, because the fact that they didn't even try to keep Tyler Toffoli or Stetcher.
Thank you, Darren Dreger.
It's just crazy.
All right, well,
here we go, people.
All right, cool. So that all right. So whatever. All
righty.
Well, anyway, but my point basically with Hall, and I have no bad feelings towards Hall. I appreciated what he did in New Jersey. I appreciated everything. It wasn't all his fault that it didn't work out. We had John Hines as the head coach, and that was the biggest problem. And that's the thing that the Devils have to blame. They have to blame themselves for the fact that they allowed John Hines go. So, Taylor Hall could just chill in Buffalo for a year. Nobody's going to give him any pressure. And then a year from now, or less than a year from now, he'll probably have a better opportunity, especially if his stats go up. Let's say he gets 30 goals and 40 assists, right? Let's say he has a 70-point season. There might be a team knocking that might say, hey, we're interested in bringing you in. Someone asked me, who did I think Taylor Hall could go to? I mentioned Vegas on a 1-year deal. Would have made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now it wouldn't have made any sense considering what they just did with Pietrangelo. I'd mentioned the Rangers. I'd mentioned that he could probably go there for a 1-year deal, but I think the Rangers probably wanted to focus on getting guys like Tony DeAngelo signed.
And Strome
as well. But Taylor Hall gets to go to New York it is what it is. It is what it is. Good for him. I hope he does well. I have nothing against him. I don't believe in the whole he's a locker room cancer thing. I think that was a hogwash. And the Devils traded Taylor Hall. And, Taylor Hall said he wanted, New Jersey feels like home. Well, if Taylor Hall wants to blame somebody for not being able to stay in New Jersey, blame your agent, because your agent didn't want you to sign any long-term deal in New Jersey. And these players say these things all the time, but at the end of the day, hockey is a business. Exactly, Joe. It's a business.
Thank you.
So Palmieri might say the same thing, and that's how it is. Look, completely different sport. Dak Prescott got hurt yesterday, out for the year, broken ankle. Jerry Jones says, "Oh, we love Dak Prescott and we fully expect him to continue to be a leader in this organization." But it's a business at the end of the day. There's still the possibility that they just might not give him any sort of money and let him walk, and that's the end of that. That's just how it is. Loyalty is not a thing that much in sports. You'd have to be very, very good and have everything go your way. And as the old saying goes, if Wayne Gretzky can get traded, anybody can get traded.
Yep.
I think that's a perfect way to end the whole podcast right there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sounds good to me.
All right, guys. So thanks for doing this. Obviously from now on, we're going to be doing these Zoom podcasts. So now that we know how to do it, so, you guys have a great night, and thanks for coming on, and let's go Devils.
Let's go Devils.
Go Devils.
Take care.